We try to bring you high-quality educational and informational content every single day. Why do you think the price is having such an anemic time? The news story of the hour. Jump onto the chart. Is this the beginning of a massive financial unraveling? We got to add a little addendum to the show map today, so we start here on the daily. Now, we've been looking at the RSI on Bitcoin's daily chart for the last several days. It always has been, but it's been increasing over the last 50 years since the government has been getting bigger. Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and welcome back to Coffee and Crypto Live. This is your weekdaily morning show where we bring you the latest in everything Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about the crash that just happened on Bitcoin. And we're also going to be talking about how the crash that's happened on Bitcoin over the last year and a half led to SpaceX selling some of its Bitcoin. Back up. SpaceX held Bitcoin? Yes, apparently they did. According to a new Wall Street Journal report that was released yesterday, SpaceX actually held hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the drop on Bitcoin, how the trade setup that I gave you yesterday worked perfectly, and how Bitcoin went to the price target that we talked about, and where I think Bitcoin may be going next. And we're also going to be talking about SpaceX and the fact that Elon Musk's companies, not just Tesla, but also SpaceX, were and maybe still are holders of Bitcoin. There's some debate going on in the Twitter sphere, funnily enough. And so we're going to talk about all of that and more in today's episode. Really excited to be here, guys. We've got a lot of great content to cover. So let's go ahead and jump straight into reading some chats. Paul Torelli's in chat. He was the first. Said good morning. Grand Roofing Incorporated is in chat. Said good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Happy Friday to you as well. Happy hashtag FinSoft Friday. Crypto Mini Bike in chat said, morning, everyone. Sean O'Brien, Joe Bollier, BNBTC, Crypto Alerts in chat. Paper Sword, Eric Ward, Robert Kehoe. Let's just read all the names. Buggin King, Alex Nibo, the Prince. The Prince of Paraphernalia, a.k.a. the Pop. There you go. Satoshi Nakamoto's in chat. All right, Satoshi. We've had some... There's been reports recently that you are actually the NSA, the National Security Agency. You know, people have been saying that the NSA created Bitcoin for a long time, and there's still a very vocal minority that the NSA created Bitcoin. I find this so interesting. I was reading some articles on this yesterday that the NSA allegedly created Bitcoin, and so there's different people that used to work at the NSA, and they're like, oh, but you know, the NSA could have made it. They were the ones that released this paper in 1998 on cryptography and currency, and so if they released this paper, and then if you actually translate Satoshi Nakamoto into Japanese, then Satoshi means central and Nakamoto means intelligence. So maybe it was the CIA working with the NSA. Maybe it was our lizard overlords that made Bitcoin. No, actually, that last part is the only part of that that's a conspiracy theory. I don't think the NSA made Bitcoin. Why would the NSA make Bitcoin? I don't know. The theory, it's interesting. You know what? Let's just pause for a second. Time out. The theory goes that the NSA created Bitcoin during the 2008 financial crisis because they realized that the United States dollar was in an extremely fragile state. And so now, over the last 15 years, the government has been trying to usher forward Bitcoin adoption, but do it very slowly so they don't lose all of their power and all the money doesn't leave the banking system all at once and bankrupt them, because they have to get online the ability to tax it first. Interesting theories. I don't think I agree with them, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that in the comments. Nevertheless, welcome to chat, Satoshi Nakamoto. Thank you for your wonderful Bitcoin. Eric Ward in chat said, right now, I got a real good feeling. King Zbzizi is in chat. Danny, Chad, Alex Nibo again, Queen, Rocket Metal News, Valerie Valenzuela, sorry. Good morning, Jeb. Where can I donate to your ministry? I didn't see a link. I saw you comment that yesterday. You can donate through Super Chats if you want. I don't have any actual just straight up dono links, so we should probably look into that. Freddie, Adrian, Paper Sword, John Denham. I think I got everybody. Shout out to all of you for being here today. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the markets. Look, Bitcoin right now is trading at $26,000. Is down about 11% in the last week, down about 2.5% or so in the last 20, I'm sorry, not 2.5, about 7.5% in the last 24 hours. It's been a major drop on the market. And if we take a look at Bitcoin, you can see that that drop has occurred right here. Now, I have not touched this chart since Coffee and Crypto was recorded yesterday. So this is exactly what we drew in yesterday's stream. You can see yesterday I gave you a trade setup right here with an entry right around 27.9, an exit right around 26.6. Again, these were just kind of figurative numbers. These were not supposed to be exact numbers that you go off of. Of course, 28,545 is a real and a very important number. 28,000 is a very important number. Those are technical levels that are important, but this was just kind of an idea of a trade setup. And if you would have gotten into this, you would have done pretty well. you would have caught the majority of the movement, and it would have been a short that you would have made almost 5% on. You could have held on to some of this as the market continued to drop. And we also drew this little box right here, as you can see, as the eventual price target that I thought Bitcoin would move into, and it was just above 26K, and that's where we are right now. If we look at the more recent history here, the more distant history here over the course of the year, we can see $26,000 has been an important level time and time and time again. And if we bring up our VRVP, we're also going to be able to see that it is kind of the bottom of a lot of our VRVP support. This is a little bit of a valley right here, and then VRVP jumps up slightly and then goes down sharply. That's where Bitcoin fell to. Bitcoin fell to almost exactly $25,236. This is a level that we have spoken about on this channel for over 6 months. $25,236 is a very significant level for multiple reasons. Number one, it is just going from more recent to more distant in the past reasons. This is the bottom that we set right around the time that the Securities and Exchange Commission was launching their attacks on Changpeng Zhao and Binance on June 5th, and then June 6th, we saw the lawsuit against the SEC. That level sits at 25,236. It is also a local high that we set here about a week after Valentine's Day earlier this year. It's also a level that we set here on August the 14th, 2022. And don't forget that it also represents the shoulder line, the neckline of an inverse head and shoulders pattern, which is the pattern that has led us through all of this bullishness recently. You can see the inverse head and shoulders pattern right here. Over the last 6 months or so, this has been the pattern that has led Bitcoin very dramatically to the upside. Of course, we've never hit the price target of 40K. Not yet anyway. I think it's coming. As we talked about yesterday, if we drop dramatically, it's a great time to buy. I encourage you to have money on the sidelines in a dry powder fund for moments just as this one. Needless to say, 26,000 and 25,236 are very important levels. Bitcoin wicked down to 25,236, candlestick down to 26,000. Those two levels that we have been speaking about over and over and over again have obviously become very important to the market over the last 24 hours, and this is why technical analysis is so very important. We spend a lot of time talking about news and the stories and the events that are going on in crypto, but we absolutely cannot ignore our technical analysis. It's very, very important that we pay attention to the levels, because the news might give us some idea of the strength of the bulls, the strength of the bears. It might give us some idea of whether we're going into a bull market, whether we're going into a bear market, but the technical analysis is also going to give us that information. So to ignore it is to ignore some of the most powerful trend information that we have, and it's also very important because it gives us the levels that the market will probably go to. BlackRock coming out with a Bitcoin spot ETF application for the SEC back on June 15th was not a level that Bitcoin would go to. It was an extremely bullish event, sent Bitcoin very far to the upside, but to figure out what level the market was going to go to, you have to go and ask a technical analyst. And we were able to tell you probably around 31.5. That's almost exactly where Bitcoin went. As you know, June 15th, BlackRock came out with the ETF. I think it was June 15th. Might have been a few days after that. Don't quote me on that. I need to check the exact date. I believe it was June 15th, though. That was the bottom anyway. We saw the BlackRock ETF application somewhere in that week, within a week of that, a week after that. And then Bitcoin ended up rallying up to around 31,000 to 31,500, which was our previous level of resistance. So Bitcoin has crashed. I think crash is an appropriate term here. I don't say that to spread FUD. I say that just to call a pig a pig. We've dropped about 8.5% on candle wicks, over 10% on a candle body. I think it is appropriate to call this a crash, as this is the second largest drop in this amount of time that Bitcoin has seen all year. So what does this mean? Is this the end of the Bitcoin uptrend? Is this the end of the pre-halving phase of the bull market that we've spoken so much about? Well, ultimately, we have to give Bitcoin some time to really shake things out, to really show us what it's going to do next. We've got to kind of hedge our bets by saying, look, it's going to take some time for Bitcoin to realize what's going to happen next. But there are quite a few different things that we can go over right now. I did just call you John, didn't I, Josh? I'm sorry, Josh. Your name's not John. Your name's Josh. There are a few different things that we can go over to get an idea of where Bitcoin is going next. Remember, guys, we've been predicting that Bitcoin was going to drop down to at least 28,545, probably down to 25,236 for a month now. Bitcoin topped out on July 15th when the XRP case was settled in favor of XRP. I'm sorry, July 13th. I think I had the 15 date from earlier messed up. July 13th, it was a Thursday, when the XRP case was settled. we saw a drop on Bitcoin begin, and since we saw bullish news mark the top, a lot of times that means that we're going to see the market go into a downtrend. If massive bullish news happens and then Bitcoin tops out, then a lot of times, then Bitcoin starts to drop, then a lot of times that means there is a top formation forming. A good example was back here on April 15th, 2021, when the Coinbase stock launched. If you look at Coin Global, Coinbase, we'll just go over here on NASDAQ. It launched and Bitcoin hit all-time high that day. 14th of April, 15th of April, happened right in there. It was Wednesday, Thursday, 14th, 15th of April of 2021. If you look back on the history here, that's the exact same day that Bitcoin hit all-time high. You can see right here, April 14th. April 14th, April 15th, those 2 dates came around. Coinbase launched, Bitcoin all-time high. Same thing over here on the all-time high at 20K. Bitcoin hit all-time high. Well, guess what? That's the day on December 17th, I want to say. Let's see if my dates are right. Yeah, I got that one right. December 17th. I'm always a day off. Sorry about that. All right. The Bitcoin CME futures launched on that day. Bitcoin CME futures launched and Bitcoin crashed. They launched the next day on Monday because the 17th was a Sunday. But the 18th, Bitcoin futures launched and it marked the all-time high. So there are plenty of times in history where Bitcoin will have a massive bullish news event. And when Bitcoin doesn't respond in a bullish doesn't have a bullish response to that news event, then that marks the beginning of a major downtrend. Oftentimes, the reason that this happens, and this is kind of a complex thought, let me just kind of break this down as simply as I can. Oftentimes, what happens is that a major rally builds up the fundamental backing for some bullish news story to take place. You can think about it like this. You've got a snowball rolling downhill. It's gathering up snow. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And right as it gets as big as it possibly can, it runs out of snow because down the mountain hits a rock and blows up. It's over. Like, you have all of this bullish momentum building up into a massive bullish news story, like Coinbase launching, Bitcoin futures launching on CME futures. Many people thought that was a bearish story in the long run, but ultimately it was an adoption story. Then, as soon as the massive news story takes place, market's over because it took the entire bull rally, whether that be a rally or a bull market, that's why I call it a bull rally. It takes the entire rally, the entire bull market to get that news to take place. By the time it finally takes place, the rally's already run its course. And that's what we saw happen back here on July 13th when the XRP case was settled. Bitcoin was already through a major rally. And from there, we started to predict it was going to go back down to 25,236. Now, a couple of things here. Let's not forget the bullish case for Bitcoin. Let's not forget where Bitcoin is right now. Year to date, Bitcoin is still up 58%. Over the course of this year, Bitcoin has nearly doubled its valuation from where it began to its yearly high, about a 94% gain. You're not going to find that in the stock market. You're not going to find that in the real estate market unless you flip a house, unless you add improvements to it. You're not going to find that very many places. Where you're going to find that kind of growth is in Bitcoin. Now, on the flip side, you're also going to find 12% drops in a day. You can think of that joke of like, if you can't handle me crazy, then you can't handle me sane. You know, it's kind of like that. You can't handle me. You can't handle my drops, and you haven't earned my rallies. And that's a bit what's going on with Bitcoin. That's why I recommend having a strong base of investment in things outside of cryptocurrency. But yes, if you're a cryptocurrency investor, not go all in, but mentally, not with your money, but go all in learning about it so that you can make some money here. So, what happens next? I think next what we're going to see happen is Bitcoin is going to go through this period of shaking out. It's going to start to stabilize because we've seen a lot of the movement happen all at once. There are two different ways that Bitcoin can go through a movement. Either it can go through the movement through time, or it can go through the movement through space. It can go through the movement through time, or it can go through the movement through price. The majority of this movement was a time-based movement. Bitcoin was moving sideways. It wasn't doing a whole lot. This movement was very short in the time in the camp of time. It was very quick in the camp of price. And oftentimes, the encouraging thing is that you either see that kind of movement happen at the very beginning of a downtrend, or you tend to see it happen towards the end of a downtrend. Obviously, the downtrend has already begun. We saw a larger movement towards the beginning. We're seeing this final movement right here. Oftentimes, this represents the end of a downtrend. And one of the ways that we can see that happening is what we call an ABC Elliott wave correction formation. If you see the movement, the market drop once, small rally, another drop, ABC, this is a corrective movement against the longer-term uptrend that Bitcoin has been in all year that I believe will form into a bull market over the course of the next year. I believe that based on the fact that this drop has happened in the first place, we're getting substantially closer to a major bottom. And if you look at VRVP, it makes sense because while on the short term, this is a valley in the VRVP indicating that rapid and volatile movement can happen in this range. Moving down farther is going to be much more difficult because VRVP really kicks up here, giving us a ton of support, especially right here around 22,808. If you guys remember 6 months ago, we talked about 22,808 over and over and over again. I was always talking about 22,808. That'd be our next level below. So I'll just go ahead and put it here just in case we need it. But I'd be very surprised if Bitcoin went down there, and I'd be vastly more surprised than that if Bitcoin dropped below 22,808. The point. Bitcoin is very close to its bottom. We dropped 20%. That's a healthy correction in a rally of this inclination. When the, yes, that's a healthy correction, a rally of this inclination. When the market was going parabolic back in 2017 and Bitcoin was rallying 70, 80, 90, 100%, it made sense for Bitcoin to go through a 40% correction because it was proportional. Bitcoin here, for example, rallied 250%. So it makes sense it's going to drop 40%. That's back in 2017, right around the time I got into the space. Over here, Bitcoin had gone through a 30% rally. So it makes sense that a 20% correction is probably going to be enough. If we look at the grand scheme of this year, we've rallied 93%. It makes sense that a 20 to 25% drop is going to be a large enough correction. I think at this point, we're getting very close to the bottom. That does not mean that we're done with the drop in time. We could stay down here for another 3 weeks. It could take us until October to start rounding out and moving to the upside. We could very easily put a triple bottom in play here and have to spend some time down here to build up even more support. But the fact of the matter is, and this is what is important to the investor as well as to the Bitcoin enthusiast. The fact of the matter is this: Bitcoin has tested the level of 25K before, and it was resilient. It was brought into a major rally because of a major fundamentals news story, and we're going to talk about some more fundamental news stories and kind of recap the week here in a second to just remind you how much bullishness has happened in just this week alone. Bitcoin has crashed. The news is great. Let me say that again for the people in the back. The market has crashed, and it has. It's crashed. This is a crash. Let's not mince words. It's a crash. Everybody in the comments who wants to say, it's not a crash, it's a drop, that's FUD. I'm not saying it is supposed to be a fearful thing, but it's a crash. Let's call it duck a duck, right? It's a crash. Bitcoin crashed. Hopefully we can agree on that. But again, that's not something we should be scared of. That's not something that we should be afraid of. In fact, we should see that as our greatest opportunity. Yesterday, I gave you a trade setup telling you that that was probably going to happen. I told you in yesterday's stream, you can go and watch it, that we expected Bitcoin would drop down into this zone. That's what happened. Bitcoin dropped down exactly into that zone the next day. And I told you that there's two things you can do. Number one, make sure that you've got your personal finances set up in a correct way where you've got an investment budget and you're able to say, all right, I'm going to put aside this much money every single month. Maybe it's 5%, 2%, 3%, whatever of your take-home pay. And I'm going to put that into crypto every month or every Friday. Put a quarter of your monthly investment budget into Bitcoin every Friday or into your dollar cost averaging investment strategy for cryptocurrency. And there's also another thing you can do. You can set aside some of that money, maybe in T-bills, maybe in a money market account, in a high yield savings account, anything that's going to get you 3 to 5% because you can get that for free. Do not hold a lot of money in a bank account that's paying you 0.5% right now. You are being scammed. Just so you know, you're being scammed. If you got 30 grand sitting in a bank account, right? I'm just going to go on a soapbox really quickly here because this annoys me. If you're leaving 30 grand like your emergency fund, I hope you have a 3 to 6 month emergency fund. If you're saving that, if you've got that in a savings account that isn't paying you at least 3.5% interest yearly APY, you're being scammed. It's a scam. Go put that money into an FDIC insured bank account where you're going to get that. We currently have our investments, our emergency fund in CIT Bank. Not affiliated with them. Never used them before. The only reason I put that money there is because based on my research, they're safe and they're giving a 5% APY. So why wouldn't I put some money there, right? Okay, back to the topic. You can also put some of that dry powder that you're keeping maybe in a high yield savings account just on the side somewhere that, or you can stake it. That's another thing you can do. You can stake it just somewhere that it's safe and it's going to be outside of the market, stablecoin, not volatile, outside of the market. And then you would have some money to dump into the market right here. So if you have dry powder, after I read some more chat, we're going to answer the question, is now the time to use it? And then we're going to talk about all of the news that's happened in just the last 24 hours, but also all the news that's taken place this week that I believe is setting us up for a massive rally over the next 6 to 12 months. All right, let's read some chat. Queen says, I have dry powder for 25 to 35. Good deal. It's good to say. It's good to see. Pew Pew Poom 2 said, Jeb, it's easy to say after the fact you were just bullish last week. Yeah. And you know why? Because Bitcoin had been sitting right above 28,545 and been sitting right above this uptrend for quite some time. And we saw the Jacoby spot Bitcoin ETF come out. Look, I'm going to be honest. Yeah. I was saying, look, there's a somewhat good chance that Bitcoin could rally here. In fact, what I said specifically is that I gave it a 51% likelihood we would drop, a 49% likelihood we would rally. Bitcoin is showing a lot of signs of bullishness. We had set a new local high. You can see that local high right here. Again, as I'm going to talk about in a moment, and thank you for that comment. The Jacoby Spot Bitcoin ETF launched this week. The cryptocurrency hub from PayPal came online this week. The CFTC gave the CFTC's NFA, National Futures Association, gave Coinbase a FCM, a futures commission market, which allows them to provide Bitcoin and Ethereum futures. Huge bullish news happening this week. And there's actually some more bullish news kind of in the sentiment side of things. This is more of a cultural side of things that I'm going to talk about in a moment. All of these news stories came out right around the same time. And so, yes, we had plenty of reason to believe that Bitcoin was going to rally. But as I told you back then also, the trend is your friend until it ends. And so I'm not going to go over 50% bullish until I see a confirmation to the upside. And even yesterday, what we saw was that Bitcoin had a sell signal on Lux Algo, and I said, look, guys, with this sell signal on Lux Algo, with MACD being bearish, with RSI dropping below the 14 interval moving average, both of these being below their midline, 50 on RSI, 0 on MACD. I don't know if I mentioned that part last week, but yesterday, but that was important. And with the fact that Bitcoin was starting to break below this uptrending level of support, we had been proven that the trend was continuing. And we had every reason to believe at that point that a larger correction was forming because Bitcoin had fallen below this longer-term uptrending level of support. So a week ago, yes, we had hints that Bitcoin would be able to go through a rally and be able to turn this thing around. And then yesterday, we started looking at the market, and it didn't look quite that way. It looked like we were going to have a correction, and then those predictions of 25,236 had to come back into circulation, and that's where we are now. Great comment. Thank you, Pew Pew Poom 2. You guys are always welcome to say, hey, Jeb, what about this? I thought you said that. Very, very important. I was bullish. That's right. Quinn Daughtery said, Jeb, I got a new job. I get to watch the lives at my desk. What's up, Quinn? Welcome. Buckaroo Tenaventer is in chat. Said, morning all. Donald's in chat. Don't forget CDs as well. CDs, so the reason that I didn't mention CDs there is because CDs lock up your money. Now, T-bills do too, I suppose. T-bills do also, but it's a little bit easier to get out of a T-bill than it is to get out of a CD oftentimes. The best thing you can do is find a high-yield savings account that's going to pay you more, because a lot of times you can find a high-yield savings account that you can withdraw from like that with wire transfer. Very, very easy. Get your money out, go put it in Bitcoin, and I'm saying you can connect that bank account straight to Coinbase and then use it to fund a trade. You can just say, boom, I'm going to, like that, trades placed. All right, we're good. So CDs, T-bills, again, they've got lower liquidity because there's certain fees and hoops you have to jump through to get out of them earlier. But it is useful to have. It is better than nothing. NSA did make the Shaw algorithm. NSA did. I'm not sure if the I'd have to check that, but there are many people say that. I don't remember if the NSA actually was the ones that created the SHA-256 algorithm, but the SHA-256 algorithm was definitely contributed to by the NSA. And the reason the NSA worked on SHA-256 was because the NSA is the National Security Administration. Their job, or National Security Agency. I think I said organization. I'm sorry. National Security Agency. Their task is basically cyber security and, security. That's what they do. So SHA-256 is the first unhackable algorithm in the history of mankind. Of course, they're going to work on that. The thing is, SHA-256 was out for, I want to say, over a decade before Bitcoin was created. So I think it's very interesting. Tell me if anybody in chat is on that camp that the NSA created Bitcoin. If Grayscale wins against the SEC in federal appeals court decision today, could make a big impact on today's prices as well. Yep. I don't like anything that locks up my money. I'm with you, Chad Ferguson. 2E Enterprises said that about Grayscale. Yeah, that Grayscale case is definitely something to follow. All right, so let's talk a little bit here about why I think that we're looking in great shape for a buying opportunity. Why I think this is such a great buying opportunity. Now, I'm going to preface with this. If you buy right now, even if you're buying with the purposes of holding for the long term. And actually, I'd say the medium term. If you're holding for the long term, you're going to hold for 5 years, whatever. If it goes down $3,000, who cares? If you're going to hold this and you're going to kind of trade it, but hold it for 3 to 12 months, here's what I'm going to say. Everything I'm about to say, you should probably use a stop loss because there's a chance, however small, but there is a chance that Bitcoin could go down to 22,808. I don't think I'm in that camp right now, but that could change because it just became within shooting distance. We just got within firing range of 22,808. So we have to think about that more. I'm not saying we're going to go to 22,808. I think that's the lesser likelihood decision. But what I will say is that Bitcoin right now is quite bearish. And so we have not seen the bottom yet. So everything I'm about to say, remember your stop losses because Bitcoin could go lower from here. All right. What I want to do now is just recap what's happened so far this week so that we can have a proper perspective and worldview, I suppose you could say, on where Bitcoin is right now. SHA-256 is not unhackable. Unavailable said. Tell me one person who's ever hacked SHA-256. I don't believe there's ever been a single case of SHA-256 being hacked. I don't think it has ever happened. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty certain I'm not. And the reason is because SHA-256 works with a cryptography method where you basically have a key. Let me just kind of explain SHA-256 really quickly here because this is interesting stuff to me. SHA-256 is called SHA-256 because it's based on massive numbers, and the 256 has to do with the exponent that leads to those giant numbers. There are a massive number of numbers that the encryption algorithm can put forward so that you have to guess. And essentially what you're doing when you're trying to get into SHA-256 is you have to have a key, and that key is like X times Y equals Z. SHA-256 has Z, X or Y is the key. You have to multiply. So basically, let's put it like this. You've got a web page or you've got Bitcoin or something, and they have Z. They have the product, which is what's behind the key. They also have the Y, and then you have to find the other component there that unlocks it, but you don't know what the private key is. So you have to have the key. The only way to get the key, and there's only one way to get the key, only one. There's only one way to get the key, is to guess and check unless you have it. So with hundreds of quadrillions of possibilities, the only way to get the key is to randomly guess and check. So in a way, you could say that every time Bitcoin miners mine a block, they're hacking SHA-256. You could say that, but it's not hacking because it's the way that the system is supposed to work. On web pages, you're going to need something like a mining farm to be able to get through that. And by the way, difficulty makes, I want to say, over 40% of those numbers into zeros right now. When you're dealing with web-based encryption, every single one of them is a number. And of course, when you add every single number, you're not only increasing it by one, you're increasing the complexity of the number by an order of magnitude. So you're dealing with more, when you have SHA-256, you're dealing with more possible private keys than there are atoms in the entire observable universe. It's basically completely unhackable, because there's only one way to get into the encryption algorithm, and it's with the key. And if you don't have the key, the only thing you can do is randomly guess and check, so it locks out absolutely everybody. So is it unhackable? Technically not. If you have a supercomputer the size of the entire observable universe, then theoretically you could hack it. Last I checked, you can't just go to Best Buy and buy one of those. So as far as I'm concerned, it's unhackable. Unavailable. If you know something that I don't, feel free to correct me. Feel free to correct me. I've been wrong before. I could be wrong in the future. But based on my understanding of SHA-256, it might as well be unhackable, unless you're talking about a cryptocurrency hashing algorithm where the design is to randomly guess and check the numbers. But again, there's difficulty there, which makes it simple enough that it can be done in 10 minutes with the current power of the with the current hashing power of the network. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about some of the news stories that have taken place this year, this week, that I think are going to be very important. Let's start with the biggest one, the Jacoby Spot Bitcoin ETF. On the Amsterdam Exchange in Holland on the 15th, which was Tuesday, we saw the Jacoby Spot Bitcoin ETF, and I'm sorry, I said Holland. I meant to say the Netherlands. The Netherlands. When the Jacoby Spot Bitcoin ETF went live, it was the first Bitcoin spot ETF in the history of the world. And so the difference here is that there have been other exchange-traded products, ETPs, for Bitcoin, but there has not been a spot Bitcoin ETF. The difference here is this. You can have an ETF that houses just about anything. If you think about an ETF, it's a little bit like an index fund or a mutual fund. It is a fund that you can buy and sell on exchange just like a stock. Difference between a mutual fund is that a mutual fund closes at the end of the day based on the net asset value divided by the number of outstanding shares. But the ETF is actually tradable like a stock, and it goes up and down in price. In fact, I can show you the Jacoby Spot Bitcoin ETF price. So far, it doesn't look too good because Bitcoin's been down ever since Tuesday. But this is the Jacoby Investment Funds PCC Limited Jacoby FT Wilshire Bitcoin ETF over on the Euronext exchange. But again, differences, mutual funds, index funds, a lot of times they close at the end of the day based on the net asset value. Basically take the value of all the companies or stocks or whatever you have inside of the fund, divide it by the number of outstanding shares, you get the price. An ETF, you can actually trade on exchange like a stock. You can go and buy and sell it in an instant, so you can do intraday, intraday trading. I want to make sure I get that right. So the reason that this is the first is because every single other thing that's ever been launched has been an ETP or an ETF of something other than physically backed Bitcoin. They've been derivatives, or they've been ETFs of Bitcoin of companies that hold Bitcoin, like ARK Investment, Grayscale. The Grayscale Trust is an example of an ETP. It's not actually an ETF. It's a little bit different. It's a trust. And even if you look at companies that, for example, buy MicroStrategy in an ETF, they're holding Bitcoin, but they're holding Bitcoin through a company. So it's not a physically backed spot ETF. A spot ETF and a derivatives-based ETF are different also, because a spot ETF directly impacts the value of the Bitcoin market because it ties into the supply and demand side of things. Futures contracts, like what's going online soon on Coinbase with their new FCM for ETH and Bitcoin, do not actually impact the price of Bitcoin because they're derivatives. The derivatives market for Bitcoin is 3 to 4 times larger than the Bitcoin market. It's valued at between $2 and $4 trillion. The spot market for Bitcoin, obviously, we just go to CoinMarketCap and boom, it's worth $509 billion right now. Very simple. This is the first Bitcoin spot ETF, which means that it is an exchange-traded product. An exchange-traded product, an ETF is a type of exchange-traded product. There are many different kinds of exchange-traded products. An ETF is a type of an exchange-traded product. This is the first exchange-traded product that uses physically backed Bitcoin as the asset that is being traded, and it is actually custodied. There is actually Bitcoin being held in a wallet somewhere for every Bitcoin that is bought or sold. I suppose it's bought and held in the ETF, which means that it directly plugs into the supply and demand side of Bitcoin, which means that if you buy the Jacoby Spot Bitcoin ETF over on the Amsterdam Exchange, over on Euronext, then you are going to actually move the market. People like to cry about manipulation. Oh my gosh, market manipulation. If you're trading in the spot market, i.e. you're actually taking physical custody, or somebody's doing the custodial work for you, if there's actual physical custody of the cryptocurrency, that impacts the supply and demand. And if you buy 100 billionth of a Bitcoin, you're still being a market manipulator. You just might not be manipulating it to the size of 10,000 Bitcoin trades. So what I could say here is this. I suppose this would be a funny way to put it. The reason that the Jacoby Spot Bitcoin ETF is so important, and the reason why Spot Bitcoin ETFs is so important, is because it levels the playing field so that everybody can manipulate the markets and not just the whales. ETFs, especially spot ETFs, democratize Bitcoin market manipulation, if you want to say it that way. Not insider trading or evil market manipulation. It just allows for people to buy and sell the asset, the underlying asset, this case Bitcoin, and there's actual physical backing, which means there's actual impact on the supply and demand, which means they're actually moving the price of Bitcoin a little bit based on how much they're moving the market. And of course, that's a wonderful thing for multiple reasons. Number one, it means that the whales are not the only ones in charge of that. Number two, it means that the everyday person in the United States, hopefully in the future, or for right now, everybody in Europe that has access to the Euronext exchange, which I want to say is every EU member, every EU citizen. I could be wrong on that. I need to check into that, but I believe pretty much all of them have access to Euronext. And of course, if you're doing international exchange, you can still try and do that. But this allows for all of those everyday people in their mutual funds or in their brokerage accounts or in their 401ks to buy Bitcoin and physically move the market, which means that no longer are we dealing with just derivatives in the traditional markets. We're dealing with spot markets in the traditional markets, which means that all of that investment coming from institutions or high net worth individuals or your everyday random Joe Schmo from West Virginia buying into the stock market will actually be impacting the price of Bitcoin. And that adoption is naturally bullish because it means more people are coming online, which will naturally drive the price of Bitcoin higher, which is why we care about a spot Bitcoin ETF. And that leads me into my next story, which is the fact that the CFTC, which is a sub-branch of the Department of Agriculture, which oversees the NFA, the National Futures Association, which hands out futures commission markets approvals have done that to Coinbase, allowing Coinbase to run a Bitcoin and Ethereum futures market. If you don't know what a futures market is, it is essentially a market where people bet on what the future price of an asset will be, and then they're able to lock in a buy or a sell order at that point. The reason the CFTC is a subset of the Department of Agriculture is because futures trading actually started with raw resource production, specifically in the agricultural sector of the market. Because if you're selling corn, you want to be able to lock in a sell price for all that corn that you're about to harvest. So you might buy a futures contract where you're going to sell that corn in September at however much a ton, a bushel, whichever way it's measured is measured in different ways. You lock in the sell price so that you're not worried, oh man, am I going to harvest all my corn here in 2 months when it matures and I'm able to harvest it, and then the market's going to be 50% down, I'm going to lose money on the crop. You know from the beginning, all right, I bought a futures contract for this corn, so I know I've already gotten rid of the risk, me, the farmer, of not being able to make money on this crop because I already have a guarantee that I can sell it at this price, even if the person that's buying it is losing money because they're trading futures. That risk is passed down to the person who's putting in the buy order for that futures contract because they're betting the market's going to be higher than that. If they're wrong, then the farmer ends up profiting. If they're right, then the farmer ends up losing out, but at least they have that guarantee, so they're able to run a stable business. Now, the reason it's so valuable that Bitcoin and Ethereum futures are going online on Coinbase is because of the absolutely enormous hilarity of the fact that the SEC is calling out Coinbase for selling unregistered securities at the same time that the CFTC, their colleague organization, CFTC regulates derivatives, Securities and Exchange Commission regulates securities, spot, derivatives. SEC does spot, CFTC does derivatives. You can think about it like that. You know, the SEC is suing Coinbase for being an unlicensed security broker dealer and an unlicensed security exchange, and issues with clearinghouse and all these different things that they're accusing them of. At the same time, the CFTC is saying, "Sure, fam, you can." And this is a quote from Twitter. Let me just find this. This is really funny. I reposted this. This person, Sean Tuffy, said, SEC, Coinbase is operating an illegal, unregistered exchange is selling unregistered securities. CFTC, sure fam, sell crypto futures to retail clients. Oh, that's so funny. That's hilarious. The amount of hoops that we've had to jump through to try and get a spot Bitcoin ETF here in the United States versus how easy it is for a relatively easy, it's been a 2-year process for Coinbase, but they got it approved first time. For a futures market to be licensed is just absolutely hilarious. All right, so the reason that those two tie in is because the SEC has been stalwart in its opposition of a Bitcoin spot ETF. In the same week, in fact, a day apart, the Jacoby spot Bitcoin ETF launched on Euronext, and then we saw an FCM given to a futures commission market approval given to Coinbase, which allows them to trade Bitcoin and Ethereum futures. So on the one hand, our allies in the rest of NATO are saying, sure, I think we're good to have spot Bitcoin ETF. Don't forget, NATO alliance. We are literally military allies with Amsterdam, with the Netherlands, with Denmark, with all of these different nations over there that are going to be able to use Euronext. We're literally military allies with them. If Russia moved troops somehow they got through Poland and Germany, and they somehow moved troops into the Netherlands, we would declare war on Mother Russia to defend them. We are allies to the death. Article 5, NATO, don't forget. We are allies to the death with them. Come hell or high water, we're allies with Europe. NATO, Article 5, the most comprehensive military alliance in the history of mankind. All of our allies across the pond are saying, sure, let's have some Bitcoin spot ETFs. Let's see some adoption for Bitcoin. And we're over here saying, wait a minute. Gary Gensler's over here saying, wait a second. The CFTC is going to allow futures to be traded from a company that we're currently suing because we're saying that they're selling unlicensed securities. Gary Gensler has more egg on his face than an old guy that was mean to a bunch of teenagers and they went after him on Halloween. Gary Gensler is up a creek right now. And he's been trying to battle this war against Bitcoin because he wants to go down in history books as this guy who fought Bitcoin, but he's starting to realize, he's got to be starting to realize he's on the wrong side of history. All right. Now, Another story that happened this week. PayPal is working on the cryptocurrency hub. If you don't know, PayPal got about 300 million users, hundreds of billions of dollars being transacted through there. Massive amount of transactions going there. They are launching the cryptocurrency hub where people on PayPal and Venmo, limited availability right now because they're still getting it launched, can buy, sell, hold, transact, and trade in cryptocurrencies, along with the fact that they're launching PYUSD, which is their very own stablecoin. That's a huge story. You've also got Visa and MasterCard, two of the biggest credit card processors on the planet, working very closely with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. It's a big deal, guys. There's a lot going on fundamentally. I'm going to tie all this back into the price in just a second, but let's just kind of run through the news real quick. So PayPal's moving in. And then, of course, you have the final story I want to talk about today. I'm going to read directly here from the Wall Street Journal because this one paragraph here kind of launched everything in the last 24 hours. It's the biggest paragraph in the history in cryptocurrency right now. This is basically just an article going over. If you don't read the Wall Street Journal, that's fine. But this is basically just a article that goes over the finances of SpaceX. A rare look into the finances of Elon Musk's secretive SpaceX. Scrolling down to the very last paragraph, they just kind of throw in here coyly thinking, oh no, cryptocurrency industry totally won't snatch hold of this. The document also shows SpaceX wrote down the value of Bitcoin it owns. Now, wait a second. Pause. Just pause right here. The document also shows SpaceX wrote down the value of Bitcoin it owns as if it's an assumption that we already knew that SpaceX owned Bitcoin. So in case you didn't know, because you probably didn't, because this was not known until yesterday, as far as I'm aware, SpaceX was an owner of Bitcoin to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. This was written in such a way that based on how much history the Wall Street Journal has with, media, I've got to wonder if it was written this way intentionally because they knew that schmucks like me were going to read it and say, that's kind of confusing language. Let's read on. The document also shows that SpaceX wrote down the value of Bitcoin it owns by a total of $373 million last year, and in 2021 has sold the cryptocurrency. It doesn't say has sold all of the cryptocurrency. Oops, did not mean to do that. Let me just get rid of all of that. I clicked a link. Oh my goodness, these links. No, don't save. Go away. All right. Let's read this again slowly. Let's read this like I'm trying to read my 3-year-old. My 2-year-old. I'll be 3 soon. Owns by a total of $373 million last year, and in 2021 sold the cryptocurrency. So have they sold the $373 million that they wrote down the value of, or have they sold the cryptocurrency as in they've sold the Bitcoin? It's I think, intentionally vague. Is it that they've sold the cryptocurrency as we got to get an English major in here. Have they sold the cryptocurrency as in they've sold the Bitcoin, or have they sold the cryptocurrency as in they've sold the $373 million? It's not clear. It doesn't say has sold all of the cryptocurrency, which leads me to believe that they've sold only the $373 million that they wrote down the value of. They depreciate it for the sake of taxes because it makes the money and they get anyway. The value of the cryptocurrency went down, so it goes down the balance sheet, lowers the operating income of the company because it's taken as a loss and they end up paying less in taxes. Has sold the cryptocurrency. You've got to wonder, are they saying that they marked down the value of however much cryptocurrency there was by $373 million, which means they probably had over $500 million worth of crypto, and then they sold that. But it doesn't say that they sold all of it. So does SpaceX own Bitcoin? We don't know. They're a private company. They don't have to disclose that information. I will try to find more information on that, but we don't know. SpaceX might hold Bitcoin. They certainly did. We know that for sure. So, has one final story for today. Bitcoin is absolutely killing it. And if you're worried about the price, I don't want to be that guy that just comes here and says, don't. Because I know it's easier said than done not to worry about something. But ultimately, let's just put it like this. When telling you not to worry about something, it's a little bit like saying, if I tell you anything else other than don't worry, it's me trying to find a nicer way to say don't worry. If I say don't worry, which is what I'm telling you, don't worry. If I try to find any other way to say that, like, hey, look, this news is good. Hey, look, Bitcoin's in a great buying opportunity. Hey, look this. Hey, look that. It's just me saying in some fancy way, don't worry. So let's just cut to the point. Don't worry about it. Bitcoin dropped 10%. Your portfolio's down 10%. Oh no, if you were planning on selling in the last 24 hours, I'm sorry. Sorry for you. Make sure that the money in crypto is something that you don't have to liquidate instantly. Bitcoin should not be part of your liquid cash balance. That's why you should have dry powder and emergency savings in a high yield savings account right now, because the yields are ridiculous. You can get 5% like it's nothing. I mean, free savings accounts. Boom, make 5%. Put 25 grand in there, make $1,250 a year divided by 12. That's $104 every month. Why not? Just do it. Go for it. It's easy money. Sit in. It's free. Ready for you to make some money. Don't have so much money in Bitcoin that if you have a liquidity crisis, you're the U.S. central bank or whatever, and you need money, you have to sell your crypto. Don't do that. Don't do that. If you had to sell it yesterday, and now you still have to sell it today, lesson learned. My takeaway is don't worry. If you buy now, be ready for Bitcoin to drop lower, because Bitcoin very well could. Bitcoin could go down to 22,808. It can happen. If it does, not the end of the world. It's not something we should be concerned about, because it's another buying opportunity. As we see in the news, adoption is marching forward, period. Jacoby Spot Bitcoin ETF. PayPal, Visa, MasterCard. That's background stuff, not news this week, but still there. We now know that SpaceX owned and probably will own again, or may even right now own Bitcoin. And we also know that Coinbase got a futures commission market. It's a big deal. It's a huge deal for adoption. This market's in great shape. Let's wrap it out. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's stream, I want you to do a couple of things. First and foremost, if you liked it, and only if you liked it, hit that like button. I want to see how many people liked the stream. Also, make sure to subscribe for more content. I'm really excited to bring you guys this content every single day. I love talking about crypto. So if you love talking about crypto, then this is the place for you. We can come and talk about crypto together. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned, 10 a.m. Eastern every single weekday. We will be bringing you coffee and crypto. Very excited to be here. And also, if you've not already, make sure to check out Club DeFi's Principles of Technical Analysis. You can find that link in the description box down below to learn everything that you need to know about technical analysis so you can hit the ground running and absolutely dominate in your technical analysis so you can go and make the most in this market. Let's just read a couple of chat messages and then we'll go on. Music Miner said, how old is Jeb? This man is a fountain of information. Thank you. I am 22. Somebody else said Jeb is a clown. Ha-ha. Ha-ha. Hopefully not one of those scary clowns. Let's see. Speaking of Coinbase, I know they halted trading during the crash yesterday. I need to look into that. Yeah, they said technical difficulty. Convenient timing for a technical difficulty. If Jeb feels 22,808 is possible, I think 22,808 is imminent. But that's the absolute bottom. I'm not sure. I don't think it's imminent, but it could definitely happen. Shadrach Frost said, folks, please take a quick moment and click thumbs up for Jeb. Give back some love and support for his daily efforts. Thank you so much. Thank you guys very much. All right. Like I said, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. More content's coming. We got a lot of things we're working on. Cannot wait to show you. We're going to go ahead and wrap it out. Before I go, I do just first want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching, as always. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.